Does your business provide a quality service or product? If the answer is yes, then there is a combination of tactics that can be customized to fit your unique business that makes your business super profitable, creates wealth, and makes a difference in the process. I know this because I've built a few tiny businesses to more than $70 million. You're listening to the Entrepreneurs Radio Show. Conversations with self-made millionaires and high-level entrepreneurs that will grow your business. Hey, it's Travis Lane Jenkins. Welcome to episode number 120 of the Entrepreneurs Radio Show, a production of RockstarEntrepreneurNetwork.com, where each and every week I connect you with rockstar entrepreneurs that explain their journey to success and what's been the key principles to finding that high level of success as an entrepreneur, so that you can see that successful people are just everyday people that stayed committed to taking constant focus action each and every day. So today I'm going to connect you with Jeff Staple, who has built a very impressive and successful business and brand. Although before we get started, I want to say thank you to Vernon Lesser. Actually, he used Vernon Lesser 78. Vernon, thanks for leaving a comment over on Stitcher. He gave us a 5 out of 5 stars with a title of Can't Miss Radio. Vernon, thanks for the great feedback, my friend. I'm glad you're enjoying the show. Vernon also went on to say that the podcast keeps him in the right mental state of mind each week. Vernon, I really appreciate you taking the time to write the review and love the feedback. So thank you, my friend. Just in case you don't know, writing a review really helps us reach more entrepreneurs just like yourself. So if you have the time and you do find value in the show, I'd appreciate it if you'd go ahead and leave us a review and just tell me how we're doing. And of course, I'll thank you personally on air. One last thing before we get started, remember you can take the interviews with you on the go through iTunes, Android, or Stitcher. Just go to RockstarEntrepreneurNetwork.com. There's buttons right there on the menu bar. Click on them. It'll take you directly to the shows rather than having to look them up on whichever platform. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get down to business. What do you say? Without further ado, welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you very much. Hello. How are you?
Man, excellent. Excited that you come and hung out with us for a little while. I've got some questions for you, although I'd love to hear kind of the backstory of how you got things going. Do you mind sharing that story with me?
Sure. Basically what we do, Staple Design, does three main things, if I can put them in the buckets. We're first a menswear collection called Staple Pigeon, Staple Pigeon, Pigeon being our icon and the logo. And that's a menswear collection that deals, mostly with like young men's contemporary. It's sold all over the world in better boutiques and shops, as well as some like larger stores like in Urban Outfitters and American Rag and Karmaloop and things like that. And then Staple is also a creative agency, so we also do design work and creative direction, marketing, ideation for a laundry list of clients from all over the world. And the thing that we do is we operate a retail business called Reed Space, REED space, and that is a lifestyle multi-brand boutique shop that also doubles as an art gallery. And with Reed Space, we have 2 locations in New York. We have Tokyo, and we have Singapore, and we are looking to expand that within America in the coming year. So those are the 3 things that I founded. I'm the founder of all 3 of those things, and between all of them, I treat them quite separately, but essentially I sort of act as founder and creative director of all of them. And I started to sort of that was the setup for your question,
right?
But I started it actually while I was attending Parsons School of Design, and the first thing that happened was the clothing. So in the form of a T-shirt, which pretty much anybody can learn how to print a T-shirt, and I was hand silk screening T-shirts out of Parsons School of Design, somewhat guerrilla illegal style, because the silkscreen lab in Parsons didn't allow you to print on shirts. It was a paper silkscreen lab, and Yeah, and me and a buddy would sneak in at night. We'd sort of leave the window open, and we would sneak in through the window with a pillowcase full of T-shirts, and we would just make our own little sweatshop all through the night, printing T-shirts using the school's money and finances.
Right. So how do you build successful businesses from there? I mean, one thing that jumps out at me is you gave yourself permission, and this is terribly simple, and a lot of people never do this. Yeah, I did it, and I have a strong sense that you did it too. You just gave yourself permission to do it, right?
Yeah, I'm not a lawbreaker. I wouldn't even really call myself a rebel. But what I really hate is when you tell me no, and then when I say why, you say just because.
Right.
Like, I don't accept just because. Like, if you have a valid reason why I can't do that, that's fine. I'm a law-abiding citizen. But if there's just some stupid, archaic reason why whatever can't happen, then I'm down to make a change and be a change agent for that. So in this particular instance, it was like they just said no. The teacher said no. I said why, and she was like, "Just 'cause you can't." And I was like, "All right, well, I'm going to show you that I can." And I had no intention of starting a business. Actually, it was really an expression of art. I just love the idea of expressing an idea using a T-shirt as the canvas for that. And they started selling on their own. Like, I would just walk into a store, and the store I walk into would place a 12 shirt order, and 12 became 24, and 24 became 36. And I just kept snowballing that same concept into larger and larger things. And before I knew it, I had a business, but it wasn't my intention to start a fashion label at all.
So your sense of style and sense of art, you think maybe is something that initially hit a chord with other people, and from that a business, you grew a business. Is that fair?
I guess that's fair. I mean, I don't want to say I had an eye or whatever. I mean, I guess because I was a designer, I was taking design classes, I did okay, and I could compose an image fairly well, and I could lay out some type. But I don't think by any means that my actual designs were groundbreakingly amazing. I think there's better designers out there in the world than me, for sure. I just think I touched on some ideas that weren't really being touched on, executed them in a halfway decent manner that was pleasing to the eye, and sold them, and that was it. No real big, like I'm not a Picasso, you know what I mean? I just think that I have the ability to sort of see what's missing in the market and what people might be yearning for next, and then jumping on that, with a creative eye.
Yeah, and I don't want to oversell it, but I think you're underselling one part of who you are. Is creativity is one thing, but then a lot of times people don't do anything with it, and so when you pair creativity with action, and then especially when you combine that with a strategy, some pretty cool things start happening, even if you're not the Picasso, right? Picasso wasn't Picasso initially, right? It's just something he grew into, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so
you're right. Picasso's got a best friend who was better than Picasso, but couldn't get off the couch.
Right.
And we don't know that guy's name now.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I, as a young person myself in business, I used to think that people like Picasso was an anointment, like God just somehow said, you're going to be special. And as I grew older, and as I started going through the trials and tribulations of life and figuring things out, I really realized that Picassos are developed. You develop into that over time through refinement and through a lot of silly mistakes, and then getting up and trying again and constantly moving forward. So take me down that path. You've obviously got to become a pretty savvy entrepreneur when you start setting up creativity and marketing and all these other things for other people, and then you can create multiple businesses as well. How did you develop those skill sets? How did that story unfold?
Well, first off, I want to agree with you 1,000% on that sentiment about a lot of people thinking that being a Picasso is just something that's bestowed upon you. Someone just came and gave it to you as a gift. And I completely agree with you. And I also want to add that I think in this day and age of social media and quote unquote millennials and the internet, I think it's worsened. That sentiment has been made worsened by the internet and social media, because now young people, when they look at Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, all they see are the successes. No one's Instagramming their struggle. No one's Instagramming their overdue credit card bill and back rent.
Right.
You only Instagram popping bottles in a club, hanging out with a cute girl, you know what I mean? Like stacks of money. I bought this new car. That's what people Instagram. So then when young people look at that, they're like, well, hell, I've never heard of this guy last year. And this year he's got a Ferrari. Mm-hmm. Like, this must be easy.
Right.
And then they go out there without the proper skills and without the proper experience and knowledge. And then they fall flat on their face, get disheartened, and then give up. So they don't know that it's like a honed skill, like you were saying it is. So I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah, and also they start seeking fame and notoriety for the sake of fame and notoriety, when really fame and notoriety is a byproduct of what you produce on a regular basis.
Yeah, they don't want to do the hard work part. They just want the fame part.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So to go back to your question about how I learned it and developed it, it was really through constant trial and error and like so many mistakes. And I've been doing that those days when I was breaking into the silkscreen lab, that was 18 years ago.
Right.
So I've just gone through 18 years worth of like screw ups and mistakes, and I'm a double dropout. Like I dropped out of NYU with a journalism major, and then I dropped out of Parsons with a design major. So I'm a double dropout, didn't graduate, no degree, didn't go to business school, never took a vocational class. So anything that I learned in terms of how to operate a business, I, in retrospect, foolhardily did it myself, because I just, I couldn't pay anyone to help me, so I just had to do it myself. And of course, I would do it wrong. I mean, hell, people take econ for 8 years and they still do it wrong. How am I going to get it right? You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I would do it, mess up, learn. But I think it's really important to do that, because then later on, when I started to hire people to do the work, I could at least be a checks and balances for them, to be like, I know a little bit about how this works, so at least you can't pull the wool over my eye completely. I have some inner working of it.
Right.
So it was really helpful, I think. Yeah,
I completely agree with you. It's useful to hold every position in the company for some period of time.
Yeah. I think there's a fine balance between, I think no matter how high of a CEO you get and how high level, I should say, you should always know what day is garbage pickup in your company. You should always know, how to tie a garbage bag, right? But at the same token, I think in order for a business to grow, one of the biggest keys I had to develop and learn was delegation. And if you don't delegate properly, I think you can stifle your own company. You can literally suffocate your company by not delegating.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with you. So 17, 18 years of this constant refinement process. How many years into it before things really took off and you started reaching a level of, pretty decent success? I know success is relative for everybody, but at what point did this whole venture start taking flight? And you're thinking, I've got a future in this.
It's interesting that you say success is different for everybody, because I can honestly tell you I still don't think I've made it. I haven't crossed any finish line or goal line by any means. I think probably in '97 was when I was able to stop doing odd side jobs and do Staple full time. Mm-hmm. So I had there was at one point where I had I had 4 jobs at the same time while starting Staple. And it was in '97 that I finally stopped all the other jobs and just did Staple full time. So that was obviously a huge risk / stake in the sand of the company, because I was fully invested in it from a time standpoint now. And from that day till now, I've just been, I often equate it to a guy who's trying to make a diamond out of coal, and how much, you just sit there and you would fine grit sandpaper and you just keep rubbing at this piece of coal until it gets shinier and shinier and shinier.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've been doing for the past 18 years, is just constantly trying to like buff out this piece of coal that I found and turn it into something pretty. And that's just what I've been concentrating on. So it's that type of a progress that I've been honing on, just, trying to sort of fine tune my craft, really.
Yeah, and I also think that the reason why it's kind of hard to say, well, I made it when XYZ happened is what impresses us or your goals change. It's a moving target, right? So for the first 5 years in being in business, I wanted to reach $1 million, and then once I reached $1 million, I wanted to reach 5, and then I wanted to reach 10. So
That's right.
Tomorrow never comes. So like I don't know if you have a Joe's Crab Shack over there in New York, but here in Houston it says free crabs tomorrow. Well, tomorrow never comes. Right?
That's exactly right. Or the other one. The other one is, do you know what the most popular day to start a diet is, right?
Tomorrow, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's the most popular day.
Yeah. Let's start that tomorrow, not today. Tomorrow.
Right.
So
But you're right.
it's elusive.
Yeah, with a moving target.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The threshold levels, financial levels. One of the things about products is or product type businesses, you can really scale them, and you don't have some of the lower level bottlenecks early on as you do in service based businesses. So the majority of my life has been building service based businesses, and in yours you've really kind of straddled the fence on both, to where yours are product and service. Which do you prefer and why? Or do you have a preference between the two type of business models?
When I had both burgeoning, I felt like from a common sense standpoint, I should probably pick one and focus on that, right? That would be the normal thing to do, I think most people would do. But I found it really hard to give one up because I really liked each one equally. And I'll tell you why. I think from the clothing manufacturing product standpoint, it was really my creative playground. Like whatever I wanted to see being worn, I would just make it. I would design it. There was no quote unquote client involved. It was whatever was in my head, came out of my hands, became a garment, and then I would wear that, and it was awesome. From a client side, it's almost the complete opposite. Someone's paying you to service them. Mm-hmm. And you have to make a satisfied customer. And you should be able to inject your creativity into that. But at the end of the day, the customer is always right. So you got to do it his way or no way, But oftentimes clients would come to us, we're a design studio and a creative agency. So they would come to us with a problem. And it would be our job as designers to fix that problem. And I really loved trying to fix problems within a set parameter, whether it was like a budgetary parameter or a timeline parameter or a consumer parameter. They sort of gave you guidelines like, listen, it can't cost more than $300,000. It's due in a month. It's got to hit this market, and show me what you got. That's very comforting to me to have those kind of constraints versus the clothing product side where I can do pretty much anything I want under the sun, and that freedom can almost be like numbing at times. It's almost like you get like brain freeze because
paralyzing,
there's too many paralyzing with possibilities. So I loved going back and forth. When I got a little bit sick of the client work, then I'd focus more on the clothing and have freedom. And then when I got tired of the freedom, I'd be like, let me work on a problem that has constraints, and I hop back over to the client side. So I love both equally.
Interesting. Well, so based on the things that I know about you, so far, you spend the majority of your time in your right brain. So where did you develop these left brain skills for, business metrics, analyticals, stuff like that?
The left side, it really just came out of necessity. I'm actually really quite horrible at math and finances. And, early on, really doing it myself was a mistake, I knew. So that pretty early on, like maybe within the first years, I knew I had to get outside help in terms of like financial advisement, bookkeeping, king. That was the first thing that I delegated out, and finding people that I trust in order. That was key. So now, because I did sort of bootstrap it in the beginning, every project that we do now, I understand that there has to be some like financial advisement, behind it. You can't just do stuff with complete disregard for financials. But that's something that I definitely had to develop out of necessity over the past few years.
Yeah, I was gonna guess that you probably brought somebody in on that, because you seem to be so strong on the right-hand side that I was going to guess that maybe you brought a CFO or somebody in, because there's a lot of metrics in business that would just, if you don't enjoy living in that space, could be a nightmare for you.
Yeah, completely.
And so you just outsourced it. I'm so glad to hear you say that, because a lot of people think because they hold the top position that they've got to manage that piece of the business, which is not true.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to let go of because of how important it is. That's like, that's the fuel for your engine. So you don't want to let that go off the rails,
Yeah.
When you really trust to take care of it.
Right. Yeah. Now, as long as you're not, and this is advice to everybody listening, as long as you're not delegating the check writing, but you can have someone deal with all of the metrics of the business, but just keep your hand on the pulse of the check writing, and that way you can protect yourself from, things that can happen whenever you delegate check writing things as well. I don't know if you've had any problems with that or had any experience or negative experiences with that. Have you?
Recently, like in the past 3-5 years, relinquished the actual payment process, so other people can actually cut checks now. But I still think that you need a trained mind to be able to sort of see when something's gone awry or something's amiss, and sometimes that's just randomly checking in on how statements are and checks cleared and deposits and stuff, and just seeing if anything's out of whack. And I think that being able to sort of get in touch with like the energy and the chi of your business is really important. Whenever I hear of someone that like is getting money stolen from or embezzled from, like they really were quite out of touch with their business and they were just out there like doing dumb stuff, proper delegation is really key, but I still try to keep one eye on the ball while trying to juggle all these other balls at the same time.
Good point. Yeah. So have you ever brought in mentors or an outside company to oversee what's going on and help you grow the business?
Not officially, no. So I have a really, unique viewpoint on mentors, because many people ask me to be their mentor, and I have mentors. I have maybe like 5 mentors, but the thing is, they don't know that they're my mentors. I've never called them my mentor. I reach out to them, and sometimes occasionally I'll seek information from them, but for the most part, it's like us just sitting down, breaking bread, having a nice meal occasionally, and just sharing ideas back and forth and learning from each other. I think when you put the title mentor on someone, it's like way too much pressure on the other guy to be able to like deliver for you like insightful ideas every time. I think you could learn much more from people you respect in how they operate their life, both professionally and personally, and then just taking away from from key points that you can observe out of them. And trust me, no one person's going to be your complete mentor. That's why I have like sort of half a dozen or so, because each person does something really good and really well in their life. And my philosophy is if I can sort of learn from 6 of these incredible people's strengths, then maybe I can better my life in that way, like completely and holistically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I think what you're talking about is more of a mastermind effect, and so you're surrounding yourself with successful people, and then you guys are sharing best practices and just kind of speaking on a level that it's hard to communicate with other people that are not in business? Because a lot of people don't get what business owners go through on a daily basis. Even your friends and family really don't get what you go through, right?
No. You're exactly right.
Until you sit down with a group of people that are fighting the same battles that you are, and they can give you their perspective. I think where a mentor really offers value is two ways. I think the mentor should be considerably more successful than the person that they're mentoring. For several reasons, because they have a much broader view rather than a myopic view on certain things. And then also, if they possess those skills and they've built businesses well beyond what you're doing, a lot of times having a mentor look into your business and look at those metrics, they can see things that you can't see, and because they are not emotionally tied to what's going on, they can see, they have a level of clarity that's not present for anyone else.
That's right. Yeah, I would agree with you, but I would also add something to that, because I have mentors, and maybe mentor is the wrong word, but I definitely have people that I surround myself with that aren't business owners, and I just admire the way they go about living their life in a completely different manner, So, I've got, for instance, an artist friend that doesn't give a crap about the money that he makes on his art. Right. He sinks all of it into his next project, and he lives like a pauper.
Right.
And that's not necessarily how I want to live my life, but I observe the way he lives his life, almost like just to see how is the grass on the other side of the fence.
Right.
So sometimes I have a great friend. One of my best friends is a doctor. He's a very successful doctor, but fully works in the system of a hospital, and it's just great to hear some of the stuff he goes through, because I like to pull from the not obvious and see how it might apply to my world.
Yeah, I think that's the creative in you. I like that. I try to do the same thing also. I love to stand by and watch what's going on. I'm just naturally curious. I want to see how people deal with things. I like to ask people questions without leading them and seeing which direction they go. A lot of times people are have a confirmation bias, and so they tend to ask questions which lead people to a certain conclusion.
To the answer they want to hear. Yeah, the answer they want to hear. They ask you in a way where it's like, well, yeah.
Right.
It's not helpful. It's not helpful that way.
Yeah, and I try to stay completely clear from that, because I want a clear, concise, objective piece of feedback. And I think that I become much clearer on that and much better at accomplishing that when I got into my 40s, because being very candid, I'd got to a place where I didn't need to be right.
Exactly, yeah.
And for a long time, unfortunately, I wasn't wise enough to where I could let go of that, and being some of the tenaciousness and strong-headed, the qualities that helped me build the business prevented me from moving forward, because I had to be right when I was a younger man, and so I let that go as I got older, and that's when things really started evolving for me on the next level.
Yeah, just allowing the mistakes to happen, right?
Right. And just letting the answer be whatever it is. Let me ask you, looking back, what do you feel like are the key things that helped you become successful, that if you were to give other business owners advice for building a successful business, what would you say those three things are?
The first thing for sure, I think, we were just talking on this a little bit, but is to trust your instincts, because basically, there's two scenarios that can happen out of a decision. One is that it goes right, and one is that it goes wrong, right? If you trust your instinct and it goes really right, well then, you're seen as a genius and a maestro, right? You're seen as like very insightful.
Right.
If you trust your feelings and it goes wrong, at least you stood your ground. and like, you did it 110% because it was the thing that you originally wanted to do. If you didn't trust your first instinct and you went with option B, C, or D, and it goes wrong, well, A, you never really had your full heart into it in the first place, and B, you're always going to now be second guessing. Well, what if I had did it the first way that I wanted to do it? Would it have been right? So you're constantly going to be saying, what if, what if, what if? That's why now I'm just like, hell, I go with my gut feeling, my strongest gut feeling, and even if it's wrong, it's fine. Like, I did it the way I wanted to do it. I can live with it,
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with you.
That's the first major piece of advice. You want 3, right?
Well, yeah, or however many works for you. It doesn't have to be 3. Just looking back over the years, 18 years in business, there's got to be some critical points where you think, it really kind of aha moments. You thought, wow, if I'd known that, I could have fast forwarded the success of this business much faster.
Yeah. Okay. I have 2 more. So I can think of 3 more. One is that I think in a business like mine where it's really predicated on skills, right? Like literally, we're dealing with artistic things, so there's a skill level involved where you have to actually be good. It's kind of like basketball, like there's good 3-point shooters and there's bad 3-point shooters. There's, in a similar way, there's like good designers and bad designers. And in my field, there's always going to be someone that's better than you coming out of the woodwork. There's always going to be a better artist, a better designer. The same basketball analogy, there's always going to be some kid that comes out that shoots threes better than you. The only thing that you can really do to separate yourself from the pack is diligence and accountability is what I've learned. I've learned that no matter who comes up to my path, I will outwork that person, out-hustle that person, and I will deliver as I promise. I'm a man of my word. And I think those things are things that you cannot put on a measurement scale.
Right.
Like, you can't say, no one ever says, how accountable is he? Like, no, it's just he either is or he's not. If he's 1% not accountable, you can't trust the dude. That's it, So I try to always instill that into my work ethic. It's just work my butt off and just be a man of my word. If I say I'm going to deliver it, I'm going to deliver it as I said I would.
Right.
And then the other bit of advice that's a little bit more pragmatic is I think, early on, it's on the topic of lawyers, okay? And nobody really likes to deal with lawyers, but early on, I think there were some decisions that I made where I said, you know what, how much is this going to cost to have a lawyer really look at it? And, whatever, it could have been at the time like $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. And I thought to myself, you know what, let me save that money and I'm going to try to deal with this myself.
Right.
And more often than not, when I made that decision, it came back to bite me in the ass. Law is one of those things where, like, you don't want to tinker around with law, and you want to really, like, have professional eyes be looking at it. So I would say another bit of advice is to have the right people looking at something like a contract or an agreement just to make sure you're not getting screwed or something's not being left out, and it really does pay for itself in the end, even though it might seem like an expensive proposition up front.
Boy, that's excellent advice. Even in my own personal experiences, I completely agree with you. The amount of exposure and loss that can come from half-weighing legal stuff like that is downright scary. Yeah,
and on the positive side, I've been in deals where, like, my lawyer brought up something and said, hey, if you just ask for this, you might get X.
Right.
And you just ask and they just put it in. It's like, whoa, that you just paid for your whole bill and then some, buddy,
Right. Yeah, I had, in one of my businesses, we had a terrible situation where somebody was killed. And
wow.
And due to the fact that I had all of my legal T's crossed and my I's dotted, I was saved from a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. And,
oh, my God, what a blessing.
Yeah, and not to mention I was absolutely sick over what happened. but I'd covered all of my bases. Whereas as a younger man, I would not have covered those bases, and I would have looked for a shortcut because I've learned almost everything that I've learned over the first half of my life. I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
And so this show is really about reaching out to people like you and that can look back, and all of us can share some of these lessons that we found out the hard way, and hopefully build a bridge that allows other people to kind of fast forward and just completely go around those major hurdles in life and in business, right?
Right.
Hey, and now I don't know if you share this, but do you? What type of revenue have you generated in those businesses? Have you crossed the $10 million mark yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're right at about 10, 12 million now.
Nice. And that's a very tough feat. A lot of people don't realize how few businesses reach that level. It's 10% of the 10% of the 10% that reach that level, right?
Oh, I didn't even realize that. Is it really that?
Oh, yeah.
Rare?
Yeah, it's extremely rare. So congratulations. Listen, how do people connect with you? And well, you know what? One quick thing I wanted to ask you. I did want to ask you 3 questions. And I had actually sent them over to your assistant, or I had my assistant send them over to your assistant. And
okay.
I don't know if you prepared for them, but what book or program made an impact on you related to business that you'd recommend, and why?
Related to business, I have a. Okay, let me think. What was really good is David Allen's Getting Things Done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with this methodology. Okay. So I think that really, I don't follow GTD to a T. I'm not like a diehard of Getting Things Done, but I was able to pull out some really key things that I think helped me a lot in terms of productivity and organization. And like with any program, whether it's a diet program or an exercise program, I think it's foolish to follow it word for word. You have to sort of curtail it to what your needs are. So, I think that one helped a lot. And his story is just amazing. I mean, he was like an ex-heroin addict on the verge of suicide, and then came out of it and just became this like guru. His story itself is amazing, but then the Getting Things Done concept is quite good.
Right. Very cool. Hey, what's one of your favorite tools or pieces of technology that you've recently discovered, if any, that you'd recommend to other business owners, and why?
Let's see. I'll give you 2 answers. You can tell me which one you want listed. Evernote and Uber.
I love them both. We'll list both of them.
Okay, so Evernote is just awesome, just to be able to, I use Evernote as like a dumping ground for ideas. So every time an idea comes in my head, I just Evernote myself and just dump it into this inbox, and it gets filed later. The beautiful thing about Evernote is it has an OCR character reader built into it. So you can take a picture of your notes, of like your prescription pills, of like your, an airline ticket. And then if you search for that word, it actually looks through photos to find that word, which is, excuse my French, but it's fucking phenomenal. Like, it's incredible, like that technology. It's amazing. Right. And then Uber just changed the game as well. Uber's obviously from a business standpoint, it's been in the headlines recently, but I was an Uber user from the first month that it's been available in New York. And just how they've sort of revolutionized something that was so old school and archaic, and then put a new spin to it using technology it's a game changer for sure, having like your own on-demand driver. Yeah,
I hear they're trying to squeeze Uber out. Many of the municipalities are trying to squeeze Uber out of the picture.
Yeah, because it's the same story as the music industry when they tried to squeeze out MP3s and downloads. The inevitable is coming. They're just trying everything they can politically to stop it. But it's so far and away better than everything else. And it's just amazing how Uber in New York actually has some other really interesting things. Like, Uber now is venturing into messenger servicing. So, we have a lot of bike messengers in New York, but now Uber's getting into that with Uber Rush. So you can actually see on a map exactly where your bike messenger is.
Oh, cool.
And then they have these other initiatives where they have like Uber ice cream truck, where you can like call an Uber ice cream truck to your office, and then it's like free ice cream for your whole office. They do some really cool stuff. They have Uber skywriting, so you call a plane and then you just type in a message, and then the plane skywrites whatever you want.
Oh, wow.
So they're really experimenting.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check those out. I downloaded Uber after I was in San Francisco on a trip, and I was at this building checking out the architecture or something and with my family, and then we couldn't find a taxi, and so we ended up walking 4 miles trying to flag down a taxi, and then I finally somebody told me about Uber, and I thought, man, I'm never going to get stuck like that again, because I couldn't even find a taxi.
It's funny, like you look now in New York, like you look at somebody who's actually got their hand up trying to wave down a cab, and it's sort of equivalent to like looking at a caveman now. You're like, what is that person doing? They're trying to actually flag a nasty cab down. It's so strange.
Right. Hey, so what quote would best summarize your belief or your attitude in business?
So I know this one. When I was younger and I had just started the company, I saw the movie Shawshank Redemption, which is an old Tim Robbins.
One of my favorites.
You know that movie?
Yeah.
And one of the greatest lines in that movie is, there's only two options in life. You have two choices. You either get busy living or you get busy dying. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no in the middle. And it was when I heard that, it was at a point in my business where I was really like, it was the 5-year itch, like the first 5 years, you're sort of struggling, you're getting tired of it, and like you don't know if you can progress past the first 5 years. And it was right there that I heard that, and it just rang so true. Where like, there's no such thing as slowing down in business when you have your own company. Once you put yourself into neutral, you go backwards. You have to constantly hustle, pedal, run, just to even maintain headspace. And so that quote, when he said like you get busy living or get busy dying, I equated that to business. Like if you're not going forward, you are dying. There's no hovering in business. You got to keep pushing. And that really spawned me to this day where like now I just, I think what I had to do was, the secret there was I had to get rid of the stuff that I didn't like doing and make my everyday just stuff that I love to do. Because when you love doing everything, it doesn't feel like work anymore.
Right.
So you just constantly want to do it. Like I actually don't want to go to sleep at night because I love everything that I do. And when I wake up in the morning, I don't dredge looking at the alarm clock and hoping I get 10 more minutes. Like I actually want to pop out of bed and start going right at it,
Right.
And so I think the secret there is like figuring out what to get rid of, keeping the stuff that you love, and then that sort of automatically happens where you don't want to stop, and you just keep going forward.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Hey, do you have any special superpowers you'd like to share with us?
So there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are really into poker, and I'm a fairly decent poker guy, and I have this trick that is actually pretty good. So if I would show it to you if I was in front of you, but basically I fan out a deck of cards for you. I have you look at a card, and I have you really think hard about the card. You stick it back into the deck, we shuffle the deck. I expose every card to you one at a time. Okay, and I don't even look at the card. I just look at your face. And when it gets to the card that you've picked, I know it by looking at your face.
Oh, okay. So you study micro expressions.
Yes, like just looking, like I tell you, try to hold as still as possible. Don't make any smirk or any face when you see your card, okay? And I'm like pretty accurate at that game. So I don't know if that's a special power, but it definitely comes in handy when you're like negotiating a deal across a conference table with somebody.
It does. It does. Good stuff. Hey, man, how do people connect with you? How do they learn more about what you do and connecting with you and maybe checking out some of your products?
Yeah, so I love social media. You know, I'm really big into Twitter and Instagram, so those are the two best ways. I don't have a Facebook. I'm sort of anti-Facebook. So Twitter and Instagram are the best, and for both of them, it is at Jeff Staples. So JEFFSTAPLE, and that's Instagram and Twitter.
Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Listen, remember that you can find all the links to the books and the resources mentioned in this show in the show notes. Just go to rockstarentrepreneur.network.com. And, of course, if you like transcriptions, you can get that there as well. Before I close the show today, I want to read a quote from basically someone that's unknown, or I don't know the source. And the quote reads, "One of the most important keys to success is having the discipline to do what you know you should do, even when you don't feel like doing it." This is Travis Lane Jenkins signing off for now. To your incredible success, my friend. Take care.